Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my picks for the top 10 soccer cleats slash football boots to be released in 2015. Now, while this is a top 10 list, it's not in any particular order. It's not from best to worst. It's not from worst to best. It's just 10 shoes that I thought were better than anything else that released this year, and there were a lot of releases in 2015. Please keep in mind that soccer shoes are very much based around personal preference, so what you like might not be what somebody else likes. That's why there's no order to this list. Shoes are about preference, and every single shoe has its own type of feel to offer. So like I said, it really depends on what you want personally from your soccer shoes. That's going to determine what is quote unquote the best option for you personally. Everybody has their own preferences, and you should go about picking a pair of shoes based on what you like, not what somebody else likes, or not necessarily by what somebody else says either. Also keep in mind that all the shoes in this top 10 list released in 2015, so very popular shoes this year like the Magista Obra as well as the Superfly 4 that came out last year are not eligible to be on this list, which brings me to my second disclaimer. Just because a shoe that you like or a shoe that's out there did not make this top 10 list, that does not make it a bad shoe. It just means that it wasn't in my top 10 picks of 2015. So don't take this list as 100% fact of what's good and what isn't. Again, it's just my picks. It's my personal opinion. You're entitled to your own. I'm entitled to mine. And that's kind of what this video is about. So with that being said, here are my top 10 picks for what I believe to be the best releases of 2015. The first shoe on the list is the Adidas X15 Plus PRIMEKNIT. Adidas made big moves in 2015 when they decided to wipe away all their current lines, the Predators, the 11 Pros, the Nitro Charge, and of course the F50 line, and replace it with the X Ace and Messi line, this being part of the X lineup, but not initially. With the original release of the X15.1, I was a little bit underwhelmed. It's not a bad shoe by any means, but it does suffer from a few little kind of quirks, I guess is the best way to put it, that I wasn't a huge fan of. It didn't fit me great in the heel, didn't fit most people great in the heel. Most people do tend to struggle with minor heel slippage, even though it doesn't cause discomfort. It's something that can be a little bit annoying, but everything else about the shoe was pretty good. People compared it to the F50 line, but obviously they are nowhere near as light and really don't offer the same type of feel either. With the release of the X15 Plus PRIMEKNIT, a modification of the X15.1 featuring Adidas's knitted PRIMEKNIT upper, they kind of resolved all the issues that I had with the original X15.1. That makes for a shoe that is very, very good. There's only been 2 colorway releases of this particular model in 2015, but if you are interested in the X line at all, I really feel like this is the best version of anything they've released so far, at least at a top end level. So for me, big fan of this shoe. The knitted upper is great. It's comfortable against your foot. It has this one-piece enclosure. It really shows off the potential of what a knitted upper can be, and it fixes all the issues in the heel. For me personally, I think that if I were to wear a knitted shoe from any brand right now, it would actually be the X15 Plus. It really is that good, and a very, very strong competitor to any of the Flyknit models currently on offer from Nike. So again, X15 Plus, fantastic release this year, very highly recommended. The next shoe on my list is from Nike. It's the TechCraft version of the Mercurial Vapor 10. The Vapor 10 as it is a fantastic shoe, obviously not a new release in 2015, but to this day, if you want an ultra lightweight, really tight fitting, kind of closest to barefoot feel you could possibly get from a soccer shoe, the Vapor 10 is the way to go. But in 2015, Nike gave us the TechCraft pack, which included this guy right here, in my opinion, the highlight of the entire pack. It's a kangaroo leather version of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 10. Longtime Mercurial Vapor fans have wanted a kangaroo leather version of the shoe for a very long time. The last time we saw a general release of a kangaroo leather Vapor was the Vapor 1, and then there was a Vapor 4 kangaroo leather modification that wasn't really available to the public. You could get it from one specific soccer store in England, I believe. But now, in 2015, we do have the TechCraft Vapor available in 2 different colorways, and I think it lives up to the hype. Is it the best version of a Nike Mercurial Vapor 10? Arguably not. It's not really the type of material that suits this style of shoe, but it's a shoe that for me personally, who is a big fan of kangaroo leather uppers, I really enjoyed wearing. It's a thin leather material. Is it particularly padded? No, it doesn't necessarily feel like a Tiempo Legend 6 or a Copa Mundial, one of these more traditional kangaroo leather uppers, but it's a comfortable shoe. It still maintains the vapor aesthetic, which is very lightweight, very tight in terms of how it fits your foot, and it's also pretty comfortable as well. Again, it's something that Mercurial fans, which I am one of, have wanted for a very, very long time, and it's nice to see that Nike has finally given the fans what they want, and they've done it pretty well in the form of the TechCraft Vapor 10. So if you've always wanted a leather vapor or just a super lightweight, really thin leather shoe, the TechCraft Vapor 10 is arguably the best ever to do that kind of a combination of features all on one single shoe. The next shoe on my list is the New Balance VISARO. This shoe had a really interesting release for a couple different reasons. One, it replaced the Warrior brand. For those that don't know, Warrior was always owned by New Balance, but they decided to kind of enter the soccer market with the Warrior brand name. After a couple of years, they decided to rebrand it, and now it's New Balance. So that in itself was a very interesting thing, but the second reason why this was such a highly anticipated release is because it was very hyped up on social media. New Balance really showed off this shoe with their professional signed contracted players wearing it well before, months before the actual release to the public. So people were really, really excited about this shoe. Plus, it looked a lot like the Nike Hypervenom Phantom 1, which when this shoe finally came out, the Phantom 1 was discontinued and we had the Nike Hypervenom Phantom 2, the current Hypervenom lineup, which for those that were fans of the Phantom 1, the Phantom 2 is a lot different. And this shoe kind of replaced the Phantom 1 to a certain extent in that it is a similar concept. It's a similar type of material, almost Nike Skin-esque, but with some improvements performance-wise when compared to the Phantom 1, in that this is a lot more responsive. It doesn't have the same stretch and rollover issues that we had with that original Hypervenom. But enough comparing it to Nike. As a standalone product, this is a very, very good shoe. If you gave this a try, and a lot of people did this year, surprisingly, most people who picked them up were very, very happy with them. Is it a groundbreaking model? The answer to that question is absolutely not. But if you were a fan of the Phantom 1 and you want a kind of slightly improved, slightly more solid version of that shoe, the New Balance VISARO is it. It's a soft upper that's on the thinner side, but still has a slightly padded sensation due to its mesh base. It's flexible. I really like the sole plate and stud pattern they incorporated here. It does have a unique fit and feel as well. And it's just a comfortable shoe overall once broken in. So New Balance VISARO, very, very good shoe. And I'm excited to see what's going to come from the New Balance brand in 2016. The next shoe on my list is a pretty obvious choice. It's the Nike Tiempo Legend 6 that came in pretty much right at the end of December, just making it into 2015, and it was well worth the wait, let's say that. The Legend 5, for those that follow my channel regularly, you know that that was my personal favorite shoe pretty much all year long until this guy came out. This shoe is every bit as good as the Legend 5, and the Legend 5 was great, but they made some changes to this particular shoe from the Legend 5 that improved things that I didn't think were possible to improve. They gave it this one-piece upper that seems a little bit strange for this style of shoe, but it really does work. And then they incorporated this internal support frame that does a really good job of maintaining a surprisingly responsive feel for a leather shoe, but without taking away from the softness of the leather and the natural feel of the leather that you would want from something with more of a traditional style. With that, they've maintained the same sole plate and stud pattern. It's still a very comfortable shoe in terms of how it fits and feels on your foot. The quality of the leather is great as well. And like I said, when compared to the Legend 5, it's every bit as good, but with improved overall performance due to that more responsive feel. So for me, Legend 6, not only the best shoe of 2015, but my personal favorite as well. Very, very good option if you're looking for something that has that soft kangaroo leather feel, but at the same time doesn't necessarily lack modern innovation. The next shoe on the list is the PUMA EVOSPEED 1.4, and this is a really interesting pick in that it's a shoe that wasn't really on my radar. I knew it came out. Obviously, I got them in for review, but I wasn't expecting too much of it, just because the EVOSPEED line, since the initial EVOSPEED 1 release, then the 1.2, then the 1.3, they were all fairly underwhelming. None of them bad, but none of them as good as their competitors. And with the release of the EVOSPEED 1.4, all of that changes. This is a fantastic option, and for me personally, if I'm going to pick a thin synthetic shoe to wear at the moment, it would be the EVOSPEED 1.4. It really is that good. I love how it fits. They really went back to the drawing board with the synthetic for the upper, making a synthetic material that's thin, not overly thin, but maintains a nice level of softness and flexibility on your foot. It doesn't have that rigid plasticky feel that the EVOSPEED line has kind of had over the last couple of years. The fit is great. It has that anatomical shape. For a thin synthetic shoe, it's not overly narrow or overly tight fitting. It has decent width through the midfoot and forefoot area, and then of course that anatomical shape that gives you more room in the toe box as well, depending if you like that type of sensation and that type of fit. I personally really do. And then you get this stud pattern and sole plate, which is unchanged from the last couple of EVOSPEED models, but a stud pattern and sole plate that is very flexible and provides really, really good traction on firm natural grass. So as a package, this is a very good shoe. It's nice and light too. And again, I just don't have much to criticize about the EVOSPEED 1.4. A lot of people mistake it for the SL model. This is not the SL model. It doesn't have the durability issues of the SL model. It's just a very, very solid option as a regular thin synthetic lightweight offering from PUMA. So if you're looking for a good thin synthetic lightweight shoe, PUMA EVOSPEED 1.4 is one that I can very strongly recommend. The next shoe on the list is the Under Armour SPEEDFORM CRM. Now this is a shoe that a lot of people just didn't give a chance for the simple fact that it's Under Armour, and I said this in my Best of 2015 series that Under Armour is a very underrated brand in general. All their top end products all year long have been absolutely fantastic, and it's really a shame that more people don't give them a chance. With the release of the Under Armour SPEEDFORM CRM, is it a perfect product? The answer to that question is no. It's a little bit too stiff in my opinion, but once broken in, it's something that you definitely do get used to. But what I like about this shoe and what's great about Under Armour in general is they're not trying to copy anybody. They're truly coming up with unique designs that have never been done before. And the SPEEDFORM CRM is a great example of that, in that it has this really unique one-piece construction to it. It has a nice synthetic upper that's gotten better. The later colorways are better than the original colorways. Keep that in mind. The ones with the pattern are just softer in general. It's a thin synthetic upper, but not overly thin. But when you get to the inside of the shoe, that's what's really unique. It doesn't have an insole. Instead, the liner and the insole is kind of all one piece. And what's good about that and what's unique about that when you actually wear these things is that it gives you a very kind of connected sensation to the shoe. It fits really well, has kind of an anatomical shape to it. It reminds me a lot actually of the EVOSPEED 1.4 in that regard. But because there is no insole, there's nothing to slide around, the liner is all connected, and like I said, you feel like you're directly on top of that sole plate, very connected to the bottom of the shoe. It's a sensation of kind of control and stability within the shoes on your feet, if that makes any sense. It's a really unusual sensation that no other shoe on the market provides, and it's part of the reason why I really enjoyed wearing this shoe when I did test it out. Plus the sole plate and stud pattern, while it's nothing groundbreaking, it does get the job done as far as traction is concerned, and it feels pretty good underfoot as well. So for me, Under Armour SPEEDFORM CRM, definitely deserving of being on the top 10 list of 2015 releases. It's a very good option should you decide to give these things a try. The next shoe on my list is actually two shoes, but they're pretty much the same, so I'm including them in the same spot. It's the HYPERVENOM Phantom 2 and the HYPERVENOM Finish. They're the same shoe in that the Phantom 2 is the mid-cut version and the Finish is the low-cut version. There's no performance benefit with either of these things. There's a $75 price difference, but really the difference is what your preferences are when it comes to how they fit in the heel, because other than that, like I said, they are exactly the same shoe. So with the HYPERVENOM Phantom 2, if you guys watched my Best of 2015 series, you would have seen that I gave this shoe the most disappointing of 2015 award, which is kind of a negative thing, but that's not to say that this is a bad shoe, because it isn't at all. Neither is the Finish. What's good about these is that in comparison to the original HYPERVENOM Phantom 1, they're both improvements performance-wise. What the Phantom 1 really lacked was responsiveness. The upper was not well supported, and when you make those quick cuts and changes of direction, there was a lot of rollover. Your foot would slide around, and stability was, quite frankly, a major issue a couple weeks down the line once the shoe was well broken in. With the Phantom 2 and the Finish, that is completely not a problem. It's been resolved 100% to the point where these are the most responsive shoes on the market. When you pull the laces tight, make those quick cuts and change of direction, your foot is not moving around at all. These things lock your foot in place better than anything else out there at the moment. What was disappointing about this particular kind of replacement, if you will, going from Phantom 1 to Phantom 2, is that they changed the overall style of the shoe. If you were a fan of the feel that the Phantom 1 provided, the Phantom 2 is completely different. It has this firmness to the upper, it has this kind of stiffness to the material that you just did not get from the Phantom 1. It was quite frankly the opposite, but again, that's not to say that this is a bad shoe. It's just very different from what we got the first time around with the HYPERVENOM line. Lots of people bought the PHINISH, lots of people bought the Phantom, and really enjoyed playing in them. I don't think it's a bad shoe. It just isn't for me personally. I prefer something that has a little bit of a softer upper, but if you like thin synthetics, if you like something that feels very supportive, very locked in place, very responsive, and also has a thinner touch on the ball, there is absolutely nothing wrong with either of these two shoes. Plus, it has a really good sole plate and stud pattern. Again, they're great performers overall. Definitely better than the original Phantom, but doesn't have the same feel as the original Phantom. So that is kind of the one downgrade, if you want to call it that. But again, Phantom 2 and HYPERVENOM Finish, both very good shoes when it comes to overall performance and worthy of being on my top 10 picks of 2015. The next shoe on my list, a lot of you guys may have already forgot about. This came out right at the beginning of 2015, and of course I'm talking about the Adidas F50 ADIZERO for 2015 that had a pretty short run. It was swiftly replaced by the X, the Ace, and the Messi line. And for that reason, it's one of the most forgotten shoes of 2015, but that doesn't make it a bad shoe by any means. This still has a lot to offer when it comes to performance, and it's why it's on my top 10 list. What was cool about this shoe is that design-wise, it was very interesting. I think that this gave us kind of a first look of what was to come from Adidas after the release of the 2015 F50. It had really interesting styling with no Adidas stripes on the lateral or medial side, other than of course what you get going down the back of the heel. It was a controversial look style-wise in that some people loved it and some people hated it, but the actual performance of the shoe was very good. A lot different from previous F50 models in that these weren't as light, kind of weighing in around 7.5 ounces in a size 9 US, versus the 5 to 6 ounce weight range that we were kind of used to with the F50 line. But the overall feel was very solid. The quality of the hybrid touch synthetic was better than it had ever been. The fit was really good on these things. And the sole plate and stud pattern was, for me, a major highlight. The stud pattern is something I wish Adidas would have stuck with at least to a certain extent with their new lineup. It's very aggressive. It has all these small little teeth. I guess to a certain extent it is similar to what you're getting from the Adidas Ace line, but of course with conical studs as opposed to bladed studs. But on firm natural grass, the amount of grip you get when pushing off in a straight line from this particular stud pattern is just really impressive. And overall, it was a very good kind of version of the F50, because we had a lot of them since its initial release in 2010. So for me, the 2015 F50 ADIZERO, if you really like this shoe and you can get your hands on a pair, it still is worth the buy in my opinion, because it's a great performer and, like I said, worthy of being on the top 10 list of 2015. The next shoe on my list is the PUMA EVOPOWER 1.2. Now, if I'm completely honest, I really did prefer the original EVOPOWER 1 over the 1.2 replacement model. And the reason for that is I just preferred the slightly softer feel and more padded feel you got from the upper on the EVOPOWER 1, where the EVOPOWER 1.2 was a little bit thinner and a little bit stiffer as far as the upper is concerned. Now this is kind of a similar situation to the Nike HYPERVENOM Phantom 1 to HYPERVENOM Phantom 2, where the one had a certain type of feel and the two just kind of changed things. It's not to the same extreme going from EVOPOWER 1 to EVOPOWER 1.2, but what you will find with the 1.2 that I think is pretty undeniable is that it's technically a better performer over the original, in that one, it's more responsive, and that to me is the biggest factor. It does take away a little bit from the flexibility aspect of this shoe. That's kind of what it's all about. but the general sensation of wearing it is still very similar, and it's still a great performer overall. It's a very underrated shoe when it comes to thin synthetic models, because a lot of people just look at this and it's kind of an oddball in terms of what it has to offer. But I think with the EVOPOWER 1.2, more so than the EVOPOWER 1, this really does fit into the kind of lightweight thin synthetic category, almost as a direct competitor to the EVOSPEED 1.4, which was also on my list. This is not too far off as far as the thickness of the upper is concerned, and it's pretty much in the same weight range as well. It's a lightweight shoe, it's a comfortable shoe. The upper is absolutely fantastic. You get that little bit of padding from the AccuFoam inserts within the upper as well. It's more responsive than the original. The sole plate and stud pattern is absolutely fantastic. Again, not too far off from the EVOSPEED line, but you do get bladed studs as opposed to all conical ones, and it just is a great performer overall and a very comfortable shoe in this particular category as well. So if the EVOPOWER line has intrigued you and you haven't pulled the trigger yet on a pair of EVOPOWER 1.2s, you can get these things on sale for some pretty crazy prices pretty much all year long, especially in the older colorways, and especially right now as they're about to be replaced. I very strongly recommend picking up a pair of EVOPOWER 1.2s just to see what they're like, because they very likely will not disappoint. Rounding out the list, we have the Adidas Ace 15 Plus PRIMEKNIT. Now, again, with the whole Adidas Revolution thing, the Ace was at first my personal favorite of the three. Eventually, as I got more and more kind of time to wear the synthetic version of the Ace, the X, and the Messi, my preferences went from the Ace to the Messi 15.1, which is an honorable mention, but doesn't necessarily crack the top 10 list in my opinion. And then again, down the line, Adidas introduced PRIMEKNIT variations of the Ace and the X. The X already on the list, as you guys saw, and the Ace making the list as well, because the PRIMEKNIT variation, in my opinion, is the best version of the Ace 15.1. The PRIMEKNIT upper, while not perfect, it does lack some kind of responsiveness and just lockdown issues. When you make those quick cuts and change of direction, there's more rollover in the upper than I would personally like. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Nike HYPERVENOM Phantom 1 to a certain extent, but with a different shape and just a wider fit in general. But it's a comfortable shoe to wear. The knitted upper provides a surprisingly leather-like sensation when it's on your foot. The shoe's very flexible. I like how it fits. It has the big external heel counter, a deep fit in the heel as well. And it's just a very, very comfortable, no-nonsense shoe that is kind of the simplest version of a knitted shoe that money can buy right now. The Superfly and the Ober are kind of off the wall with their mid-cut designs and just with the way they fit. The X15 Plus is kind of interesting in the way it fits as well, whereas the Ace 15 Plus is kind of just a regular shoe that happens to have a knitted upper. So simple is not always a bad thing, which I think is very well shown with this particular model. Plus you get this Ace sole plate and stud pattern that's technically FG-AG, that in my opinion is a true FG-AG hybrid. You can use it on firm natural grass and the performance is great, and you can use it on artificial grass. Not only is it safe, not only is it going to last the part, it's also going to perform the part as well. So really cool innovation from Adidas and just a great shoe in general. The Ace line is very good whether you buy the regular synthetic, the kangaroo leather version, or the PRIMEKNIT version. But for me, of all three top-end models within the Ace lineup, the Ace 15 Plus is definitely my pick of the best of the bunch, if you will. All right, guys, that is it for my top 10 list of the best releases of 2015. I apologize if the video was a little bit long. I didn't mean for it to be, but I feel like lists without any kind of backstory or explanation are a little bit pointless. So I wanted to give you guys kind of where I was coming from with all of the picks on this top 10 list, because at the end of the day, I think that details are the most important thing when you're trying to do research on a pair of shoes. You want to know what it's all about, and I feel like I kind of gave those reasons in this video, which is why it ended up being a little bit longer. But that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this list down below in the comment section. Do you agree with my picks? Do you have any picks that are different from mine? Do you have any opinions that are different from mine? And even if you want to leave your own top 10 releases of 2015 down below in the comment section, that would be kind of a cool thing, so we can kind of all compare how our picks differ from each other. Because like I mentioned at the start of the video, soccer shoes are all about personal preference. Everybody likes something different, so your top 10 list might be different from mine. Also, if you have any questions at all regarding any of my picks, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.